Back when I was the happiest person I knew, I didn't see hard or difficult experiences and unwanted happenings as something to dwell on and feel bad about. I saw them as contrasting experiences, life lessons that told me and taught me something important about what it is that I want instead. And that was huge for me. Because our brains, our minds always wants to just see everything that's going on in our lives and have this automatic response to it. Like if something bad is happening, of course we're going to feel bad about it. And of course we're going to dwell on it and think about how unfair it is, how we deserve better, how much our life sucks. That's what we do, right? And once again, this didn't change until I realized that I had a choice in how to think about and respond to my surroundings. So the difference is always between reacting to what's going on versus choosing how you want to feel about what's going on. If we're just going to go through life and react to everything, then we can only feel good. We can only feel happy when everything is lined up perfectly the way we want them to be. And how often do we get lucky like that? That's why most of us, myself included, would never kind of know what day you were getting. Because what would determine how your day felt was what happened to you or what didn't happen to you. The facts in your life. We are so used to just looking at the facts in our lives and accepting them as this set reality, as something that will always be that way. Or we think about how we're going to change it, how our lives can be differently, but we think about that from looking at the problem. Like, I want this different life because I don't like the way my life is right now because of this and this and this and this and this. So I want a different life. And what happens then is that we think that we have this positive reason for thinking about it, as in our intention is that we want it to feel better, but we won't get that because we are thinking about it in a way that's only letting us strengthen the fact that we have a problem, we have lack of something, things are not the way we want them to be. So when I learned to see these facts of my life that I didn't automatically like or enjoy, when I learned to see them as contrasting experiences, by that I mean a contrast to what it is that you want. So if you want this, but you're experiencing the opposite of what you want, that is a contrast. It's a contrasting experience, and our natural reaction is to feel bad about it. Because as we've already been through in other videos, what we think about something determines how we feel about it. And we have gone through our lives telling our minds what we like and what we don't like. So of course, when the facts of our lives, when the experiences of our lives are something that we have earlier trained our mind to know that we don't like or we don't want, that's the automatic response to that. Our mind will think about the fact that we don't like that, we don't want that, and that makes us feel bad. It's very easy, yet very complicated. So what I would do when I was the happiest person I knew, because if you're new to this playlist, I once was the happiest person I knew just by using my thoughts on purpose. But then I forgot to do that. I forgot that I had a choice. But now I'm returning to the happiest version of me, and I put everything in a list. Everything that I knew and did mentally back when I was the happiest person I know. I wrote it down, and I'm reminding myself of it step by step in these videos that I put in this playlist. And one of these major life-changing things that made me into the happiest person I knew back then was the fact that I could look at these things, these facts of my life that I didn't like or I didn't want, instead of just letting my mind react to them the way I've always been doing and make me feel bad. I could choose to look at them as valuable information about what it is I want instead of that. Actually, I learned that I have so much clarity in what I don't want in my life, and way less clarity in what specifically it is that I actually do want instead. And that is the result of me just going through most of my life reacting to what I see. Because if I don't see a lot of things that I like, I will just react to them, letting my mind know that I don't want them. But how much time, how much thought energy have I spent on thinking about the opposite? What do I want instead of that? What is this teaching me? Because you can only know what you want if you know what you don't want. But we just seem to forget to take the next step in that. We just get stuck in thinking about what we don't want and what we don't like, and we stop there. Or we just spiral into feeling really bad and thinking that my life is not at all what I want sometimes. But that's a waste of thought energy. And it can only do one thing for us, which is to make us feel bad. And it will definitely not let us get to what we want instead, because we're not even thinking about what we want instead. Or if we are thinking about it, we are thinking about it from a lack perspective. We are thinking about it from a standpoint of, I do not have it. That's why I want it, because it feels so bad not having it. And since the mind just snowballs from that standpoint, it can only make you think more thoughts about how bad it is that you don't have it. So it's not preparing you. It's not giving you anything of what you want. It's just giving you more of what you're already focusing on, which is what you don't want. But if we just upgrade our minds and take the next step, we use these unwanted situations, these challenges in our lives, these problems in our lives, this lack in our lives, and we say, oh, I notice that I'm feeling bad right now, so that must mean I do not like this. I do not want this. How is that teaching me, giving me clarity in my life? Well, if I know that this is what I don't want, What's the opposite looking like for me? What do I want instead? And from there, think about what that looks like to you. Instead of dwelling about the facts of your life, think about, give your mind the clarity in what it is you want instead. And I just started using that whenever I realized I was stuck in a loop of thinking about unwanted things. For example, because I can talk about this all day, but I need to just pick one thing. Say I felt lonely. I have had many moments where I've experienced loneliness in my life. Not because I haven't had friends or family. I'm very lucky, so I have a lot of friends and family, which I love. But we can still feel lonely even if we are surrounded by people. And for me personally, I have always been so interested in how the mind works, how people work, how we get what we want, and to constantly grow and evolve myself into this better version of me. I used to think the better version of me was achieving all of these goals, but luckily I now know, and I did back then when I was the happiest person I know, the best version of me is the happiest version of me. Because also it's the most important thing I can give myself, but it's also the most important thing I can give to the ones around me is my happiness. Because that will affect everyone around me too, so it's a win-win. But sorry, I'm losing track, as I often do. My point is, I would feel lonely in wanting to develop myself, in wanting to discuss everything in this self-development era. And I didn't always have friends or family that was as interested in that as I am. So I would feel lonely in that area of my life very often, because I love talking to people about these themes and exploring them with someone and getting these aha moments and cheering each other on and growing together. So I was feeling like I lacked that in my life. And then my normal, typical response to seeing that fact in my life, that I was feeling lonely, would be to kind of dwell on that. To feel like something was missing in my life. And to watch these movies or YouTube videos where people had those kind of relations or connectedness with someone and get jealous and feel sorry for myself for not having that, right? So what that did was only make me feel worse about it. And it was definitely not making me less lonely when I only thought about the fact that I felt lonely. But when I learned these things about my mind and how my mind produces my emotions, and that happiness is the emotion I want, I could just look at that for a while, enough to see that this is something I don't want. So what does the opposite of that look like? How can this fact of my life give me clarity in what it is I want instead? And so I started thinking about this. If I felt fulfilled in this area, what would I experience? What would I have in my life? Well, I would have these deep and meaningful connections. I would learn from others and I could inspire them myself. And we could get together over coffee or go for walks and just talk about everything we experienced in our lives and how we want to make the best out of that. And just by thinking about that instead, I felt so much better. I felt so much lighter because then I took the focus away from what I do not want. But I used it as valuable lessons to provide to my mind information about the wanted outcome of my life. And started thinking about that, even if I didn't have it, of course made me feel better. And I would also say that it actually affects what we actually get back. Because if I go out in my life with this thought about me being lonely, if I meet people or there are these opportunities for me to get to know someone new, I would kind of not even see that because I would be in such a mindset thinking, what's the point? These people are not out there. I never find my tribe. They are probably not even interested in the same things as me, so what's the point in even trying to talk about that? Versus me looking at and choosing to focus on and feel how I want to feel. That trains my mind to go look for that emotion more. And when my mind is focused on what I want instead of what I don't want, it will meet these people and situations in a different way, in a more open way, in a way that says, well, I don't know who might be my tribe or not. I don't know these people's interest. Maybe I feel like they are talking about superficial things because they are in the same place as I am. They are also longing for more, but they have just given up. So they talk about the same things that everyone else does. But maybe if I go first, it will show who's interested in the same things as me. So, looking at what I don't like, looking at challenges, looking at hard or difficult or unwanted experiences, and just stop focusing on that. Once I know that I don't like it, I switched it and I thought about the opposite situation. What would it look like if I felt good about this? If I wasn't lonely? What would that give me in my life? And that gave my mind a whole new pathway in meeting people, in talking to people, in what I myself put out there when talking to people. And that goes for anything. I used that on all of the facts of my life that I didn't like. And once I start feeling better about it already, before these things even changed, my mindset changed. How I entered the world changed. How I felt about everything changed. And in turn, that changes my energy. So maybe people would look at me like this closed down, not very interested in talking to you person back then when I was there. But then I come into the room with this whole different energy saying, I want to connect. I want to have deep, meaningful relationships and conversations. And that's what I enter the room with. So I spent that recipe on everything. Once I saw that I was dwelling on something that didn't feel good in my life, I looked at the other side of it, and that alone provided so much more happiness in my life. So that is my reminder for today, for me and for you, because it is easier than we think to get happy. You don't even have to have a change in your circumstances. You just have to choose the thoughts you give to them. and magic will happen. See you later. Thank you.